Today we're playing Vintage, the most powerful format where I get to play cards like this one. Let's see what we're looking at today. Surely this can't be right. Hold on, let me check my notes. Oh no, this is right. We're Uba masking! Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today we are going to be playing Uba Stax. So if you are familiar with Vintage and you are familiar with the general idea of workshops or shops, that is various artifact-centric decks that try to use Mishra's Workshop with the greatest number of broken artifact cards that aren't restricted, and all the ones that are restricted too. To make a parallel to Legacy for a moment, Uba Mask is kind of like a Pox card, in that it's something that you are hoping to make not symmetrical and kind of break it. It is a slow card. It's a card that doesn't win the game on its own, but it does have a really interesting interaction with another card that we're going to play. I want you to imagine that you control a Bazaar of Baghdad and an Uba Mask. You're going to just tap that to draw 2 cards, and they're going to hang out in exile where you can cast them. You're going to discard some cards, but that's going to be fine. The idea is that every turn you can use Bazaar of Baghdad as just a tap, draw 2, while playing Uba Mask. And it is going to greatly decrease the power of your opponent's things like Brainstorm and Ancestral Recall that actually draw them cards, because things like counterspells that they draw are just going to hang out in exile and not do anything. Oops, you drew 2 lands off your Brainstorm. Too bad, you only get to go and play one of those. Generally speaking, our game plan is going to be Prison. We are going to seek to lock our opponent out of the game with Sphere of Resistances, Chalice of the Void, Thorn of Amethyst, and all of those similar cards. So Kevin originally submitted a deck list that I've kind of updated with a list that I got from Justin Ganari. Shout out to him. Thank you very much for that. So let's take a look at what we're playing today. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com as well as Cool Stuff Inc. And remember, promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% over at Cool Stuff Inc. So this is our Uba Stax deck list. The original version that Kevin sent me did not have Patchwork Automaton, but I really thought we needed something to try and win the game early on. This deck list is very light on win conditions, as it is looking to slow the game to a crawl and then do things like repeatedly wasteland or even strip mine your opponents into oblivion. The Uba Masks, generally speaking, as well as the Bazaar of Baghdad's that are going to go with them, are probably the weakest cards in the deck. When it works, it's going to be super cool. Uba Mask kind of doubles as sort of generic blue hate in addition to this combo. And Bazaar at Baghdad discarding lands is probably not a bad thing in this deck list, so you can use it as some degree of card selection, even when you can't turn it into literal card advantage via Uba Mask. So ultimately, the question to ask when playing a deck list that looks like this is, why do I want to play this over another version, like another deck that just contains Mishra's Workshop? There are more aggressive and probably more consistent versions. And the answer is nostalgia. Like this is something that is fun, and it feels really good when you go and do this. Uba Mask is maybe not the most competitive card, but we know that going in, and we're looking to have some fun today. Hopefully we also have some fun while, occasionally casting some restricted cards and just bullying our opponents. Speaking of bullying, the sideboard is very focused here. We know specific things that we are trying to fight against. We know what axes we want to go and fight on. Notably, in order to fit in things like Uba Mask and Bazaar, I do have to drop some things like Null Rod that are normally in the main deck and move those to the sideboard. That does mean that we're not the best at fighting artifact mana specifically, but we do have a fair amount of artifact mana ourselves, so that's not exactly the worst thing in the world. Primarily, other than prisoning our opponents out, we are looking to win via Urza's Saga. Notably, we can use Mycosynth Gardens to copy some of our lock pieces to end up with multiple Thorn of Amethyst or Sphere of Resistances or whatever. With that being said, let's battle. Alrighty, I have kept my opening hand here. And we are off to the races. Ho no! That is a Bazaar. We have a Wasteland, which I can use to kind of... Okay. We are seeing Creeping Chill going to exile, which is normally a source of damage for these sorts of decks. I have Wasteland to take out an initial Bazaar, but if we're looking at Dredge, a lot of damage might be done with this first Bazaar activation. I've lost the Smokestack, and let's see how bad this ends up looking. I'm not super current on Vintage. I enjoy playing it when I can, but it has a small target audience, unfortunately. A very passionate target audience, though. Icarid Silver Smite Ghoul. This is good. This represents a Grafdigger's Cage. I'm always just wastelanding the Bazaar here. That's gotta go. I am not sure that I want to play any other cards, because playing these after a Patchwork Automaton represents some damage. There is the downside that they could just go and eat cards like Grief, but, you know, if that happens, it happens. All right, let's pop out this zone. What are we working with here? A Creeping Chill, and that triggers one of these to come back to play. So, is Saga the plan? I think Saga is the plan. So I can go Saga, cast a Mox Pearl, cast a Patchwork Automaton. Ooh, I ate a Force of Will. I don't have a real reason to put a Chalice on 0, I believe. I'm going to go ahead and just pass the turn. My opponent's only going to get a small Dredge this turn off a Golgari Thug. Not even going for exiling the Grief here for 3 points of damage. Okay, that was a very weak Dredge. We're happy with this. I eat 3 points of damage here. I'm still relatively healthy. I think I am on track to be fine here. Crucible of Worlds is an okay draw. I don't really need that yet. Let's just play this with the intention of making an Urza Saga token. Does it matter if that is a 3-3 versus a 2-2? It could. It probably doesn't. I'm not even 100% sure if I block with the Urza Saga token this turn. A lot of that depends on whether or not Icarid comes back, I suppose. The thing is, as soon as I control... Oof. That's a good turn for them. As soon as I control one more artifact, these Urza Sagas don't die to 3/1s anymore. Yeah, I think I take this. It just doesn't feel good. I would like to make an Urza Saga token here. I will make another. Hate the optics on this. I've got a 4/4. I will get a Grafdigger's Cage into play. We will workshop. Use that to cast a Crucible. And that's going to get me Urza's Saga in a minute. I have to figure out how to not die to the Narcomoeba, which is kind of a humorous thing to say. But that's kind of where I'm at. All right, there's another Dredge. Got a few turns to figure out how to beat Narcomoeba. Got some things like Smokestack in here. I don't have Tabernacles in game 1. I have those for post-sideboard games. I guess Creeping Chill, slightly longer term, is also kind of scary as well, right? All right. We got Saga ticking up. I can make an attack next turn. I think we're ultimately going to just be a little too slow here. Yeah, there is a Creeping Chill. So notably, this is not a cast. You exile it, and it has an effect. So I feel like I would like these Tabernacles and these Ley Lines. And I'll probably play Dismember for things like Hollow One. It's a little costly in terms of life, but you know. I guess Uba Mask is actually kind of interesting here, right? Or wait, no, this is multiple replacement effects. Dredge is a replacement effect. Yeah, so with multiple replacement effects, Uba Mask isn't actually going to do what I want it to do if my opponent dredges. That probably means it's a weak link here. And every time that I cut Uba Masks, I will cut Bazaar of Baghdad as well. That gets me the spots for ley lines. Chalice of the Void maybe isn't at its best here. The spheres and Trinispheres aren't like super amazing either, huh? My opponent's not actually going to cast that many spells. Like there are still going to be things like Force of Vigor, so like I don't think I'm going to cut those effects, but I'm just going to kind of keep it in mind. I'm not quite sure how to board. Maybe I can do something that looks kind of like this. It leaves me with the Sphere of Resistances that tax everything. I don't know, maybe I need this one. I should view Trinisphere as a turn 1 play. Shoot. Just a couple of seconds remaining. 62 cards. Yeah. This is fine. Force of Vigor is relatively good against this hand. I'm going to do a lot of damage to myself this game. That is a Serum Powder, a second Serum Powder. So 3 counterspells gone, 2 Icarids gone, just kind of keeping mental note of my opponent's mulligans. Opponent takes another mulligan, and ultimately keeps on 5. I think I am going to lead on Sphere of Resistance here. This is the spell that I can play that doesn't 2-for-1 me if my opponent has like Force of Vigor specifically to clear these out of the way. And then on my next turn, I can play Patchwork Automaton into Pithing Needle on Bazaar. And there is the Bazaar. Grief, Prized Amalgam. And no further play. So. Oh, actually, I suppose I can't play Patchwork Automaton into Pithing Needle this turn. That would cost 5 mana. Okay. We're shutting off Bazaar first. And I'm fine playing a Cage. Now I just have a large number of pain in the ass permanents in play. My opponent said, like, wow, you packed some hate. Sure did, Resco. Sure did. There is a Strip Mine. My opponent, we're going to hold that. We're not going to let my opponent see that. Because this is how I get their creatures if they do like sneak a Hollow One or whatever into play. Ow. It seems to me like my opponent might have found something like a Force of Vigor that can answer some of these, and they're trying to pick between targets, and that is indeed what has happened. So Grafdigger's Cage and Sphere are both around still, so this will definitely mitigate some of the nonsense that my opponent can do. Double Bazaar. I might just die to Creeping Chills. Alright, so we Patchwork Automaton, and then Mox Pearl afterwards. And we'll see if I end up dying before my opponent does. I'm definitely a little worried. There's a second Bazaar activation. Guess let's go ahead and pop out this zone. How many Creeping Chills are out? None other than the one they just hard discarded. Okay, so my opponent will get a good number of dredges to find those, and I might just die. Yeah, I'm dead. Like, it was just super unfortunate to have double Ancient Tomb here. And no other way of producing mana, because Tabernacle does not produce mana. Vintage! Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I personally keep all of my deck lists for every format on this site. I love that I can go and sort them by types and tags if I need to. There's a lot of different viewing options. It can give you some math about your mana symbol, your curve, and you can even playtest and do sample opening hands with it. Check this site out if you haven't before. It's awesome. Alright, we're playing against 0 mana, and that's what I'm hoping that they're gonna have after a few turns. Let's go. Yes. Oh, come on, not a fetch land. Yes. Let me wasteland you in peace. There's a Mox, which is fine. It's less good if it goes into another Mox. But notably, my opponent does not have blue or black mana yet, which, you know, presumably are their actual colors. So, we will wasteland. And in case it is relevant, I don't know that it is, but in case it is relevant, I'm going to go ahead and play out the Grafdigger's Cage. This is Tolarian Academy food for a little bit later on, more so than anything else here, which I can play as soon as next turn. It's a delicious underground sea that I'm about to eat. Soul Ring. That's a good amount of mana. A Mox Sapphire on my end. Just Ghost Quartering. I might just be Ghost Quartering here. Not current enough with Vintage to know whether or not my opponent is going to have another basic here. A Vamp Tutor in response. This is a May. This is a May. So they can Vamp Tutor for a card and then not search. Okay, yeah, that's indeed the plan. We'll go to a different phase. I will pay 2 life for a Mox Sapphire and call it a turn. See if my opponent can do something fancy. I wonder if they forgot that they were losing their land or what. I have to play a land in order to get Crucible into play. I wonder if I'm just supposed to not play Crucible and just play an Urza Saga and begin to work towards... Sorry. Beating my opponent down. I said that poorly. What I really meant was I wonder if I'm supposed to, like, play Urza Saga and tap Ancient Tomb to take more damage this turn, rather than just play out a land that taps for more mana. That is in a Braid. Going after my Crucible. That's fine. Like, Saga will hopefully do gross Saga things. This is... Tolarian Academy is less restrictive than Workshop is, so I'll just play that. This is some good, honest prison magic, right? This is what you all came for. I knew I was signing up for this. All right, how bad is it? What? In Vintage? Yeah, wild. I just fully did not expect this. Is this some strange PO build? Like, no. Let's make another construct. We're just Pithing Needle this. My opponent can't loot. I don't really need more mana. Did I just click on Soul Ring? I apparently just clicked on Soul Ring. Okay. Well, if I lose the game to my opponent looting with Relic of Sauron, know that I said the right play out loud and then clicked on the wrong card. Let it be known. There's the One Ring. My opponent gets protection from everything for a turn. Understood. I guess that's a thing that I should Pithing Needle. So I will go ahead and play this. Hide the Ghost Quarter. And pass the turn. Opponent's dead on board, so they need to do something here. There's a draw 2. Yeah, I'm confused about what is going on over there. Like, is this some crazy-ass Doomsday deck? Like, I had PO vibes, but now it's like Workshop and Ring? Like, is it Doomsday piles that just are the One Ring and untapping it? Like, I am lost. Okay, there's another copy of the One Ring. For protection from everything for another turn. Okay, sure. The One Ring and Mana Crypt are definitely going to do a number on my opponent's life total, even if I can't attack them. So I will go ahead and take out your land. Okay, they do have a basic. They just didn't search before because of the Vampiric Tutor. My opponent guaranteed to takes 1. Feeling lucky, bunk. Nope. So I don't know exactly where we're going. We're going to a lot of mana, though. Fucking again. The good news is this can only happen one more time in theory. That's a top. Sure. That is a Mystic Forge on my end, which will probably do some serious work. So let's Mystic Forge. A mana drain. Unfortunate. So mana is not really a bottleneck for my opponent anymore. They are potentially at 1. They won their flip this time. Mana drain gives 4 mana. Again, mana shouldn't be the bottleneck though. There's a very large something coming. What the fuck just happened? Red Sun Zenith X equals 12. That is just straight up a fireball. They just fireballed me to death, folks. I feel unlucky to have lost that one. I would like Null Rod. Get off all my opponent's artifact mana. I still don't really understand their deck, honestly. Well, I did a quick search for Red Sun Zenith and literally 0 decks came up on MTG Top 8 with it, so we're on our fucking own, folks. 4 Null Rods in. I'm going to assume that my opponent has Tinker and maybe not board that out. Tangle Wires seem reasonable. The Uba Masks are probably fine. I'm going to cut Trinisphere. Cut a piece of Acceleration. And 1 Crucible. This is fine. I would not call it exciting, it's just fine. I'm ultimately going to need more mana than what I actually have here. My opponent has kept on 6. I will just be starting on the most disruptive thing I can do, which is Sphere of Resistance, which has quickly eaten a force effect. Alright, my opponent's... oh no, my opponent's got a lot of mana. They just turned Black Lotus into Relic of Sauron. Okay. I think I'm interested in the aggro elements here of this card. I will cast a Mox Sapphire to grow this. And I am going to fire off the Wasteland. On my next turn, I can cast a Tangle Wire and start tapping down the artifact mana. That is a Vamp Tutor, which is definitely scary. Like, am I just going to eat land, tinker, sacrifice relic, or what? Oh, it's ancestral. Okay. That honestly could have gone much worse. Like, no One Ring or anything of that nature happened. Ooh. Null Rod, Tangle Wire. Null Rod, Tangle Wire. Rod. See how that goes. I don't know that it's going to resolve. Ooh, it does. I am perfectly fine with this as a fair card right here. Stripmine's solid. We'll discard 1, 2, 3, as those are not castable currently. And then start just beating face. Once at 15, artifact mana is shut off. I have a win condition in play. Opponent can't go ham with a whole bunch of cards from something like the One Ring. Alpine Moon, sure. They have named Wasteland. So close. So close. Mycosynth Gardens is cool here. Do I attack Volcanic Island or Workshop? I think Workshop. Strip Mine Workshop. Hit my opponent for 3. And then I can end up Mycosynth Gardening a Patchwork Automaton to increase my own clock. Daggers, they had another. A Crucible of Worlds. Not bad. I will just be casting that. That represents recursive strip mine. And maybe some other things. Like, I can just Bazaar and dump some other lands into the graveyard, potentially going and finding other things that I can play with Crucible. Or Workshop. Given my opponent's draw, getting the Volcanic would have been better. Discard Jet and that. Did not fish extra things into the graveyard. I should technically activate Bazaar right there. Strip Mine. Have to strip mine Volk. Going to say that this is worth the life here. And my opponent is dead next turn. They're at 2. I still really don't understand their deck. You pitch anything relevant off the force? No, they just pitched another force. Okay, seems like they don't have a play for their turn. I am fine adding some extra utility to my graveyard here. So we'll tick down the fading. Then go ahead and tap a couple of my things before crashing in with Patchwork Automaton. And that's a lethal attack. It sure is hard to sideboard when you just have literally no idea what your opponent is doing. I haven't seen any creatures yet. Seen a lot of mana and the red sun. I could like give up my Bazaar of Baghdad's to play some things like Defense Grid to stop my opponent's counterspells. That is, I guess, reasonable. I could go down a Tangle Wire on the draw. Could cut this Grafdigger's Cage, but I think I'm going to keep it. Hey, it's that Grafdigger's Cage. It's just Grafdigger's Cage immediately into Sphere of Resistance with some other hate pieces as follow-up, or even Tangle Wire if that seems like it's something that I should do. There's a shop. Okay, sure. There's the One Ring, which is just super reasonable as a thing to do. If I draw a mana source, I can just Uba Mask my opponent, and then the One Ring gets significantly worse. I'll do it on turn 2. So, Workshop. Do a Grafdigger's Cage, followed by a Sphere of Resistance, which may or may not just immediately eat a counterspell. It did not. So there's some life down. This is a scary turn for me. So they're up to 7 after that. Untap target legendary permanent. I am honestly surprised I haven't seen someone try this in Legacy. That's super cute. Time Walk. Fuck. Why are blue cards so good? Like, I thought I was good. Like, the One Ring activation was something that I was totally prepared to do. 2 of them was not. There's a fetch. There's Vamp Tutor. And so my opponent can immediately draw whatever they need to draw off the One Ring. So, where are we going exactly? Nowhere immediately? It's awkward. I don't double spell this turn. I can have 6 mana, but Uba Mask costs 5 of that. Mycosynth Gardens is eye control, right? Like, I can't just copy a One Ring. Yeah. I'm going to play another Workshop to increase the chances that I do end up multi-spelling. Alright, my opponent has Force of Will and pitched Tinker, so I was right to be wary of Tinker. However, my hand's kind of doing an awful lot of nothing right now. And I'm not poised to move in a super good direction. I think my opponent just draws a whole bunch of cards, plays a new copy of the One Ring, and is in a commanding position. Unless they kill themselves with, like, the One Ring or Mana Crypt or whatever. I think they probably win this one. Chain of Vapor. I am not interested in sacrificing a land. Now, my opponent has 9 cards in hand and can untap the One Ring. I expect the floodgates are about to burst open here. That's a Chain of Vapor. So I am guessing my opponent is now going to just copy this a whole bunch of times and bounce their various artifacts. Okay, they're going to bounce my cage. Sure. Replay the mana. Untapping the ring. Casually drawing 5 by tapping an artifact. A new copy of the One Ring, unfortunately. Am I going to get another turn? Am I going to get a win by timeout? The answer to at least one of those questions is yes. All right, my opponent has discarded an Abrade and a copy of the One Ring. It costs me 6 mana to play all of my spells. I can also wasteland my opponent, probably taking out the Minamo. So, Cage. Sure. All right. We're in play. Tangle Wire. That is hitting Force of Negation. I haven't seen anything like a Daze yet. I guess I play this anyway first. Cast Sphere of Resistance. Wasteland Minamo. Call it a turn. When it loses some life. Gotta fetch. Sure. That's fine. So these are now just essentially rainbow lands. Is this symmetrical? No, it is not symmetrical. Sure. Lodestone Golem. I could play that next turn. I'm not even sure if I want to. Like, it may just be more profitable for me to cast a sphere, like, to make another Sphere of Resistance, rather than trying to just whack my opponent for 5 and kill them. Let's sphere it up. I am unsure if this is correct, but given time constraints, it seems like time is probably the way that I win this game, if I win this game. Not life total, but maybe I'm wrong. Alright, sure, fetch away. Like, is this deck literally like one red sun is the only way to win? I guess there was a Tinker. There must be another card. Like a Boss, a Citadel or something. Sure, that's fine. I could take your protection. Discarding a Mox. Sure, so this currently costs 6. I can't do that this turn. Let's play this. And do 2 mana for my Mox Jet. Alright, sure. So at this point, they've stopped drawing cards with the One Ring. Lodestone Golem will be lethal in a single shot. Tangle Wire. Is this better? Is this any permanent artifact, creature, or land? It does just deny 4 mana to my opponent immediately. Lodestone Golem better. Whatever I play probably just gets countered, so I think I'd Tangle Wire first. Because the Tangle Wire like doesn't really bother me at all, because I just have plenty of non-creature things. Okay, there is a mana drain. Sure. So you can have 3 mana. That is hard casting a Sphinx of the Steel Wind. That's the Tinker target. That's not great for me. That's Vigilant as well. Do I have ways to get that out of the way? Don't have Dismember boarded in. Yeah, I don't really have good ways to deal with that. Noted. Alright. The 2 damage doesn't matter here in terms of a clock. But at this point I am fully on, like, the way that I win is my opponent timing out. I'm just not going to out aggro my opponent anymore. It's just like not viable. Chalice of the Void not doing a lot here. Don't even think I cast that. Like, I think I just cast another artifact so I have more mana if I do draw something more interesting. This is an incredibly disappointing loss. Alright, I am at 4. My opponent has plenty of mana. Tangle Wire is not ultimately going to do it. Ooh, my opponent is casting a spell. Sure. I'm going to cast a Chalice. Send Lodestone Golem in. My opponent took the hit. And I believe they can attack me once in 25 seconds, unfortunately. But please, I beg you, play win conditions in your Magic decks. Alright. I think I'm gonna mulligan this hand. Like, I can play a turn 1 Sphere, like Wasteland, Jet, Sphere, and then like play Urza Saga into Patchwork Automaton. I just don't know that I'm super excited about this. It just feels like if this card gets countered or Thoughtseized or I get Wastelanded, I just end up very, very, very far behind. Saga, Pearl, Automaton. Turn 2, Tolarian Academy, activate Saga. Just literally play an aggro deck. I guess I have a strong ability to pivot. Without a Crucible, I don't think I'm ready for a Smokestack yet. I don't know. I'm just like not happy with how my openers are looking here. Maybe I should be mulliganing deeper. All right. Yeah. Sphere, you say? I understand. Do I just wasteland my opponent? I don't think so. I think I'd rather wasteland a different land. I'm going to let them wasteland me and just drop a Pearl this turn instead. That's a better land for me to wasteland. There's a Foundry Inspector. Obviously strong, it cancels out the Sphere of Resistance. My opponent's going to be the beatdown in the short term. I don't know that I'm actually wastelanding my opponent. I might just be putting a Patchwork Automaton into play and then using Tolarian Academy to kind of break parity with what's happening here. I think that's how I'm going to play this. I think with my opponent being on the play and just having better mana than I do, I don't think I can attack their mana profitably and win the game. I think this game is about these two lands over here, rather than any of the lands that are currently in play. There's a lot of Ancient Tomb damage. That is Karn the Great Creator, which is pretty bad for me, because that is going to eat away at Tolarian Academy mana in a way that's super negative for me. Like, I lost 2 mana there. This would be a great turn to draw a Mishra's Workshop. Thank you. So we will Workshop a 3 mana for a new Patchwork Automaton. I think I'm just chilling. Like, Karn minusing is less of a thing in this format. I think I just hold back so I can trade with Foundry Inspector or Sphere of Resistance. Ooh, it is tutoring. Note that Karn is restricted in this format, so most decks don't have like a crazy robust tutor board or anything. It is a Crucible of Worlds. Crucible Wasteland is rough, considering that like Urza's Saga is the way that I was planning on getting out of this game. Yeah, unhappy with this. I hate this. All right. I'm going to play a Sphere of Resistance to grow these automatons. I am going to send damage at my opponent's face here. I would like to lower their life total and make it very awkward for them to tap these cards. But I think I just get soloed by this Crucible of Worlds. Like, I basically don't get to cast spells the rest of the game. Oh, wow. It is a new Foundry Inspector. My opponent is at 6. Mycosynth Gardens is not doing a lot right now. All right. I'm going to fast forward this one a couple turns. I think this game is just over. I don't think there's going to be anything interesting to say. All right, my opponent now has an Urza Saga. Like, if I Ghost Quarter this and make it so that they don't have an Urza Saga, it doesn't matter because they just have Crucible to bring it back. My own Urza Saga isn't going to work. Like, I can play and copy a Patchwork Automaton, but like, I am not winning this game at this stage. GG. So, Null Rods, Dismembers, Tabernacle are things that I can think about. Not super interested in Grafdigger's Cage. Not the most interested in things like Thorn. I'm kind of unfortunately the control deck in this matchup. Like, my opponent just has more aggressive elements. Opponent's not probably drawing cards, so the whole Uba Mask thing is very medium here. That's enough for me to get this, and I can think about whether or not I want Tabernacle beyond that. My spheres and Trinispheres and whatnot are very underwhelming. I'm going to stay like this when I'm on the play, and then when I'm on the draw, if I get to a game 3, I'm going to board in the other 2 Tabernacles. Jet, Saga, don't have mana to do anything beyond that. I'm going to say no. Chalice on 0. Well, I guess I can just Null Rod. Just straight up ignore Chalice. Cast Null Rod, intention of like Null Rod into Lodestone Golem, Ghost Quarter. Sure. So, let us Null Rod. And this play can be varying degrees of good depending on what exactly my opponent's working with over there. I am fine casting a Trinisphere. And I will go ahead and Ghost Quarter my opponent's thing. We'll see if they have a basic. They do not. We do have another land, but that does not get them to a meaningful amount of mana yet. Pithing Needle. Reasonable. I will not do that this turn because of Trinisphere. Okay, my opponent's done with me pretty quickly. When I'm on the draw, I think Chalice of the Void is not particularly strong. And I'm probably not excited about Trinisphere on the draw either. Not that I'm excited about Sphere of Resistance on the draw. Like, let's be clear here. So, I have a path to destroy my opponent's lands for Tabernacle to be reasonable, and I can Null Rod, and I can Urza's Saga. I think this is reasonable. Like, I don't have a land that taps for 3 mana in my hand, but I have a ton of land-based utility here. Hopefully this is good enough. Crucible of Worlds is something that's absolutely brutal for me. Okay, sure. Yes. Yes, everything's fine. Everything's still fine. Naming Ghost Quarter. Nettle Cyst. Alright, my opponent has played all of their cards. How dare you? How dare you? So if I Ghost Quarter my opponent, they go down to 2 mana. If I Null Rod my opponent... Oh, Workshop. Does that change anything? No. Actually, it does, because it means that I can play Null Rod without losing life. Yeah, that is actually quite significant. I believe that I Ghost Quarter my opponent here. Oh no, I needed to Wasteland. I just punted the game. I just punted the entire game. Because now I can't Wasteland this, Null Rod, shut off these mana sources, and kill my opponent. Oh, that is upsetting. Oh, that is so upsetting. Yeah. Yeah, just literally lost the game for that decision, that misclick. Because my opponent doesn't cast that. They have this stranded in hand. I Null Rod them. I take a non-lethal amount of damage because they control 1 less artifact. And then I Tabernacle, get rid of both of those. Yeah, I just punted that game by clicking on the wrong land after talking through my line. That's on me. Alright, so I could start this game with a pair of Patchwork Automatons. I don't really know that I'm excited about doing that with no Stax piece as backup, and I'm not going to count naked Uba Stax as that. Like, my opponent is not guaranteed to be a blue deck. I am going to mulligan. I mean, I could turn 1 Trinisphere. This is fine. I'll get rid of the Bazaar. We have not lined up Bazaar and Uba Mask yet to do cool things with Uba Mask. Chrome Mox. I don't see that too commonly. Alright, Ancestral. You do see that one commonly. Sure. Yes. Oh, I see. This is going to be some, like, oops, all spells variant. Understood. Workshop. Tap. Soul Ring. Mana Vault. My Chalice still just go on 0? I don't know. I'm going to say this still goes on 0. Play 3-ball. We'll just kind of see how this develops. Seems like Mana Vault in particular means that what I'm doing could be beatable. The Mycosynth Gardens. I'm less interested in that than I am just Ghost Quartering my opponent's land. So let's just take out this, and I presume that my opponent will not have something to search out. Alright, cool. Pithing Needle. Sure. Let's do this. A mental misstep. Do not get to shut off some of my opponent's outs. I could turn Magnificent Gardens into a Soul Ring if I feel like that's a thing that I want to do, but I don't. I want to turn it into like a Sphere of Resistance. Hey, a Sphere of Resistance. Let's do this. I'll pass the turn in my opponent's upkeep. I will target Sphere and copy it. And we're going to grind this game to a halt, baby. Notably, I don't have the Null Rod in the main deck that I might want to kind of lock things up. I'll hold that in hand. It's already turn 6. We are both at 20 life. Ooh, things are happening. It is a spy. Is this going to target me? It is going to target me. Sure. All right. If we just die to a 10-turn clock 2-3, I'm dropping the league. There's a Seagate Reborn. I will end up taking that out with either Wasteland or Ghost Quarter. I'm on 18. Hey, that's incredibly good. So this will cost 5 mana. Rude. We'll make a land drop. Ghost Quarter my opponent's thing. That was just going to get me an Urza Saga and be a very easy way to win this game. Opponent currently doesn't have mana to untap Mana Vault, so they're going to start taking damage from it. Unfortunately, I am on a clock. Another damage. There's a Seagate Reborn. Just straight up cast a Thassa's Oracle. Alright. I am at 14. There's not a live draw. Actually, that one doesn't do anything because of Chalice. I'll still keep poking my opponent's mana sources, but we're pretty deep into the deck without actually having found any mana sources. Or sorry, not any mana sources, any threats. I guess you can count the Crucible as a threat. Oh, that is an odd 4 mana evoked grief. Or I guess 3 mana evoked grief for Trinisphere. Sure. Thank you, deck. Opponent takes another one from their mana vault and then continues to just get to punch me. I'm at 8. Thank you, deck. Alright, they eat 1 more damage. I'm getting to the point where I don't have very many outs anymore. Yep. They take another one from Mana Vault, but I take 3 more from these creatures. Go to 2. And I've drawn this too late. Yeah, I mean, we're 25 cards deep, and I didn't find a threat. Alright. Leyline is good. Null Rod is probably good enough. If I Null Rod, things like Tabernacle start to become interesting. Not super interested in Uba Mask, which means I cut Bazaar. First 4 things I'm playing are the ley lines, obviously. Not sure how in love I am with Tangle Wire here. It seems like the other options are better. How do I feel about Tabernacle? It's a way to clear creatures that my opponent just plays out to attack me. In theory, I shouldn't just lose to that, but you know, we just did. I'm not going to Tabernacle. I don't think this hand is good enough. Like, it has a leyline, which is fantastic, but I don't play a reasonable, like, a vintage card until turn 3. I'm just going to mulligan that. Well, this hand's better. What am I expecting? Force of Vigor? Probably expecting Force of Vigor. I think I keep everything that lets me get out of the first couple of turns and pitch the Crucible. Like, despite the fact that the Crucible is something that I very much want as the game goes very long. Alright. So, I will cast a Pithing Needle, which ate Force of Will, pitching Narcomoeba. We still have Leyline of the Void in play, which is nice. On its Chrome Boxing. Dark Ritual. Goblin Charbelcher. So I am probably just going to lose to that. I need to keep my opponent from ever getting 3 mana. Noted, but very unlikely. It's possible I'm supposed to try to dodge a land there just to make it so that artifact mana can't be played out in this next turn cycle. Awkward, but we'll take that. So I will cast a sphere. I notably cannot cast the second sphere here as it does cost too much mana. And as soon as my opponent can get to 3 mana, they do kill me. Alright, sure. Notably, my Pithing Needle has been used and I can't get it back, so, you know. I believe that I am dead. Like, I can't cast another spell here. My opponent just activates Goblin Charbelcher. And I am dead. So at 0-4, where we lost to Belcher just playing a vanilla, like, 2-3 creature and beating us to death with it, we can probably just say that this deck doesn't have what it takes for Vintage and move on with our lives. So my biggest complaint about this deck list is that just that it does not present wins. Basically, all this deck is trying to do is not lose. And a lot of the shop's variants are good at presenting wins. They back up the stacks pieces with a stream of aggressive creatures, and those creatures have changed over time in Vintage. But, you know, be it an Arcbound Ravager, a Foundry Inspector, you know, there's all sorts of things that you could play. Like, play something that backs up your threats. When you are trying to play things that take forever to get online, like Smokestacks and Uba Mask, and you are not actively pursuing a win of your own, your opponents just have time to draw out, and their higher density of win conditions and greater ability to actually steal wins is going to let things slip away from you. Now, notably here, I did punt a game where I just physically misclicked on a card, you know, in that whole Wormcoil Engine situation. That one's on me, but we were just waiting so long to draw threats, because this deck essentially needs to win the game with Urza's Saga or Patchwork Automaton. And the original build that was submitted was trying to only win the game with Urza's Saga. And honestly, I just don't think that's enough. Okay, I missed Lodestone Golem. Lodestone Golem does have power and toughness. But, you know, prison enthusiast that I am, I think that if you are wanting to stacks people out in Vintage, this is not what the build looks like. There's probably a good reason when you search Uba Mask, you don't really see results on sites like MTG Top 8. Regardless, the gameplay today was pretty intricate and there were some interesting situations, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you end up wanting to buy your copies of Uba Mask or any other card, check out Cool Stuff Inc. Use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. And folks, I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya!